ever had a day where one tiny thing goes wrong? Like, let's say you slept through your alarm, and that means that suddenly everything is going wrong and everything is like out of sorts. I've been there, and I'm sure you have too, because we all have. And I have two things to say about that. First of all, that is no reflection on you. You're not broken at all. And second of all, your system is what has something wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with you, but there is something wrong with your systems. And it usually comes down to your system being too fragile. What I mean by that is any system that fails when a single thing goes wrong is not a system that's built to last. So today, I want to talk to you about how we stop building rigid systems that don't work for us and instead learn to build adaptable systems that, well, adapt to what we need in our lives no matter what's going on. Systems that are flexible, that grow with us, and that accept our humanness for what it is. If we haven't met yet, my name is Isabel, and on this channel we talk all about embracing your weird in order to build a better brand, business, and life. So let's go. So here's the deal. When we create systems, we usually create them from a place of perfectionism or a place of the ideal. We create a system for that day that we're super organized, that day that we're super energized, that day that we're super productive, and we don't usually take into account what happens when that's not the case or what happens when life throws us a curveball. And this creates really rigid systems. And rigid systems tend to be extremely fragile, which means that when anything goes wrong, there's like one single thing where you can't do a specific step, then everything falls apart. The problem with that is life doesn't work like that. Life is a lot more spontaneous and unplanned and unsure than we would like to give it credit for. And so this tends to create problems. And what society has taught us to do is to make us think that means that there's a problem with us as humans. There's a problem with us because we can't keep up the habit. There's a problem with us because we can't keep up the system. However, that's not usually the case. Because if you wake up late or you get sick or life throws you a curveball like your dog gets sick or you get a flat tire, these are things that are going to happen at some point in some time in your life. Something's going to come up that takes priority over something else and that you can't account for when you create the system. That's normal. That doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you as a human. It's something that happens to every single human on Earth. It is normal. And you guys know I don't really like the word normal. So me saying something's normal, big deal. A good system shouldn't rely on working if you're working at your 100%. A good system should still work even if you're working at your 30%. So what makes a good system? First of all, a good system has multiple access points, aka we don't put all our eggs in a single basket. So what do I mean by that? Let's say that you have a paper calendar, and your paper calendar in your planner is where you have all your appointments and all your meetings. But you left your home today and you left your paper calendar at home. And now you have no idea what time your meetings are. If you had a copy of your calendar on a digital platform, then you could easily access your calendar from somewhere else. And that's what I mean by multiple access points. If you only have your to-do list on your phone and you lose your phone or you leave it at home or it runs out of battery and your system fails, then you do not have a multiple access point system. If you only keep all your brightest ideas in your brain, just please don't do that. Please write them down somewhere. Like it gives me anxiety even to just think about you keeping it in your brain, because brains are notoriously forgetful. I lost my train of thought because that made me anxious. That thought made me anxious. Okay. So anyways, multiple points of access. That's what I was saying. I know there's some of you that are going to listen to the multiple points of access thing And you're going to go either there's the people who are going to say, well, I don't like a digital calendar. I like having a paper calendar because I feel better with it. And that's great. I'm also a paper person. I really like paper, even though I understand it's not as efficient as a lot of digital things. However, because I understand that it's not as efficient as a lot of digital things, I have both. At least the most important stuff is on both, because that allows me to have multiple points of access. And this is where the second group of people come in and they say, oh my gosh, you know what though? This sounds really counterintuitive because doesn't copying everything into multiple places feel redundant and also kind of non-efficient? And this isn't like a really streamlined system. And you're probably right on some level. However, also, redundancy is not the enemy. In the case of systems, redundancy is a good thing because it means there's more than one way to access and more than one way to execute, which means your system is more resilient. Your system is more resilient, and that means that it won't fail if a single thing goes wrong. And that's what we want. Think of it like this. A professional musician doesn't travel with only one guitar string or only with one microphone, right? Because if that guitar string breaks, they're fucked. So, we want to do the same thing. We want to build our systems in a way where they have backups that can come to our aid if a single point in the system fails. So, if you write your weekly schedule on your planner, at least copy the most important stuff onto a digital version or onto a second planner or onto your phone or something so that you have access to it if anything happens to your planner. The second thing is to have a plan B. And plan B here stands for bite-sized. I want you to have a bite-sized plan for your system. What do I mean by this? We would love to think that we have the exact same time availability every single time that we want to do whatever we want to do. And sometimes that's just not the case. So what we want to create is a bite-sized version of our original system that we can do when we don't have the same time available. For example, I usually do a monthly meal prep. And in that monthly meal prep, I spend like one day I do the grocery shopping, and then the next day I spend the entire day cooking. However, sometimes I just don't have that weekend to get all of that stuff done. So I normally meal prep one time a month. However, when I don't have time to do that, what used to happen is that I would order in a lot of takeout and I would eat a lot of chips because it was on hand and it was there. And I didn't have time to cook. But now I have a plan B, a bite-sized version of my meal prep that I can do during the week over the course of multiple weeks, of course, that allow me to stay on track with my health goals and with eating healthier and cleaner, but also I can go back to my full size, like one time a month plan whenever I need to. Does that make sense? And the third thing is your systems have to be energy aware. And what I mean by that is we're not robots, we're humans. And I say this a lot on this channel, but we need to stop designing systems like we're robots. Like we're gonna have the exact same amount of energy every single day. Now, I've talked about this before, but I'll give the example again. My morning routine and my night routine and a lot of my other routines have 3 different levels to them. I have a superhuman level, which is my full routine, and I'll put the image here so you guys can see, which has 19 tasks on it. I have a normal human level, which means that I only try to do 15 of those 19 tasks. And I have a zombie gremlin mode, no energy level for those really, really low energy days when I don't want to do anything, but I still want to get up and go in the morning. I have a zombie level, which only has 9 tasks on it. Now, all of these tasks are in the full system. Like those 9 zombie level tasks are part of the 19 superhuman level tasks, But this allows me to adapt my morning routine to my energy levels that day. It also has the added bonus that if I sleep through my alarm or something, I can do a shorter version of my routine, even if I do have more energy, but for whatever reason, I have less time that day, right? And so what this does is, again, it creates space and flexibility for your humanness. And that is really important when it comes to systems, because if we don't have the flexibility, if your system is too rigid, again, that means it's too fragile. It means that a single point of failure will collapse the entire system, and that's not what we want. If you're enjoying this video, I'd love to know, would you consider that your systems are more on the rigid side, aka fragile, or more on the flexible, aka adaptable side? And is there any system that you think you might have to review? Here's a little bonus tip. Build fail-safes into your life. Some systems are just better when they're automated. So when like your bills are auto-paid, or when you have a backup, let's say no prep meal in the freezer that's always ready for when you don't have time to cook. Or in the case of things for social media, if you always have an extra YouTube video recorded that you can post if you don't have time to record this one, right? Or you have an extra email written, or you have an extra social media post written. Of course, you can have multiple of these. The more you have, the better. But building these fail-safes for when the system inevitably fails, because they all do at some point, one time or another, because we're human again. Having these fail-safes in place really makes it not about the tools, but about anticipating your own humanness and your own like life conditions, and understanding that you can get ahead of the game whenever you want. The last thing I'd say about this is that it's important to review your systems and reflect on them. I like asking myself at the end of each week, what went well, what didn't go so well, and what could be improved. Usually this gives me a little bit of insight into what things could be tweaked in certain systems. But also, I've recently added one more question, which is, what did I procrastinate on? So things I said I wanted to do or had to get done that didn't get done, or I spent a lot of time like circling the drain to actually start taking the action. I ask myself that question now because it usually gives me a lot more insight into what could be happening that isn't helping me make progress on the things I say I want to make progress on. Now, I also try to do a monthly version of this. Now, I'm not talking about creating a super intense session of like writing out all of these reflections. It's more of a you thing of thinking about it, reflecting on it, and saying, oh, maybe I could look at this thing this other way. Maybe I could tweak this one thing and test that out and see what it is. At the end of the day, you're kind of, with your systems in your life, you're kind of the scientist, the designer, and also the test subject, which is a weird spot to be in, but it's also a really nice spot to be in because you get to keep experimenting and you get to keep testing and figuring out what works best for you in all the versions of you that exist out there. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really, really appreciate it if you like and subscribe. Also, let me know in the comments if there's any system of yours that you think might need a little bit of tweaking. I make new videos like this every single Friday. Until then, stay wild, stay weird, and I'll see you in the next one.